Okay, so as promised, this is going to be the sort of like the other version of part one, whereas we have two core modules and we're adding a custom relationship field to the core modules. So before, when we were working with the modules, one of them was a custom module. So one of them was basically the host module was a custom module, and the sub module was the core module. So you definitely need to watch the other tutorial if you are to understand what's happening here, but we're going to do like a very quick overview, and there are important distinctions here. So like if you have two core modules that you're connecting, I highly recommend understanding this tutorial. So the first thing that we'll do is, as in the previous part, we're going to define our host module and our sub module. So very quickly, as mentioned in the previous tutorial, so the host module is the one that usually is going to have several sub-modules in it, and it's going to host the sub-module's sub-panel, right? So the sub-module is the one whose data is going to be displayed. And if you remember correctly, the sub-panel is basically like a miniaturized list view of the sub module. So that's very important to remember. So we have the contacts, we have the project. We're getting these values from the include modules.php file. So it shows us a list of all of the available modules that are there basically. So it says here, you see basically the list defines the modules shown. So we have contacts as it's spelled here, and we have a project as it's spelled here. Then we have sh, so sub module host module, so it's basically like just the this followed by this. Then we have the relationship table, so that is what you have inside your database. So your database is going to actually contain the table that is going to have your relationship columns, right? In our case, the table is going to be projects, contacts. So one of the ways that actually you can get this table is if you look at the vardefs of your sub-module. Actually, the host module should contain it also. So usually the relationship name it matches the table name, right? And that's the distinction also, that's what's different with the custom modules. Usually it's going to be like _C or something like that, and here is just this name here. Actually, we'll come back to this part here. It's a bit tricky, but just remember that we looked at the vardefs of the submodule. Perfect. So let's move on to the next part, which is basically defining the relationship name, which often matches the relationship table name, and then the custom panel. So the custom panel, just call it basically for followed by the host module name. So in our case, it's for contacts. This you can just disregard. And then we'll go ahead and talk about the overview of what we are doing here, and everything will make sense. So the overview is we're going to be adding a custom relationship fields to the existing relationship table. So when we just started, the relationship table was ID, contact ID, project ID, date modified, deleted. So this is what linked the records. The first one is just the ID of the relationship. And then we're saying that this specific relationship, it links this contact ID with this project ID. This is the date modified. And what we want to do is we want to have a custom date start and date end. So we'll go ahead and we'll actually add these things to our database. So the way that we do it is we basically go ahead and modify the file called metadata. So another important distinction compared to the custom modules, we're not going to custom metadata, we're going to metadata directly, and we're going to find the relationship name. So in our case, it's going to be projects contacts. So we're going to go to the projects contacts here, and then we're going to add this right there. So as we did here, we're going to do a repair and rebuild. It's going to ask us if you want to add the relationship columns, the columns to the relationship table. We say yes. And then these columns have been added. So the next thing that we want to do is we want to add we want to sort of like make these columns readable by the system. So the columns are there right now in your database, but we need to tell the system how to use them. We need to make them readable, right? And we do it with the good old var defs. So the var defs are basically going to allow us to indicate those fields. We're going to go ahead and open up the var defs of the sub module, not the host module, but the sub module. And the reason why we do it, if you want to like a bit of a context here, this is a miniaturized list view of the sub module, right? So those fields, they have to do with your sub module. They're coming from your sub module. Everything is with the sub module. So we're going to create a file in custom extension modules submodule extension var defs. Don't mix this up because you may end up very easily in a bad folder. So I'll give you an example. So we're going to go to the custom extension modules. Instead of going to custom extension modules, you may go to custom and modules right away, right? And that's going to be a mistake. You're going to lose a bunch of time like I did in the past. Custom extension modules, right? Then we're going to go to the custom extension modules. I'll show you here it is. So it's in custom extension modules, projects extension var defs, and then we're going to create our custom file. And then when that custom file is created and we do repair and rebuild, it's actually going to put it in this repair and rebuild folder, which is custom modules, projects, extension var defs. Anyways, it may get confusing. So let's go back to our var defs and take a look at what we're dealing with here. So the structure is the following. It's going to be your submodule name, followed by fields, then the relationship name, followed by fields array. And as you can see here, this is the submodule, which is project, fields, the relationship name is project contacts. We get it from our variables that you defined above. That's why it's important to have them defined. So you do a simple find and replace. And then the relationship name here. And then here we have the relationship fields. So this is very important part. Is we have these key value pairs. You see this here, right? So this is going to be your column name from the database. And this is your alias. Column name from the database, alias. You see here ID, date start. You get the concept. The aliases are what is going to be used throughout the rest of the var defs. The remaining part of the var def and the metadata files. So it's important to define them here. And as you can see here, my aliases are a bit more verbose, but that's a personal preference. The way I have it here actually is like this. So those are my aliases here. And then we move on to the part which is name of array that contains relationship name. So not to be too toxic here, but like in the infinite wisdom of like initial developers of Sugar, I don't know why they made it this way, but remember before we talked about like you can find the name of the modules in the modules file. So this thing here is not actually your relationship name. So this, you get it from your submodules var defs, where you got your table. So you're not going to grab this, you're not going to grab the name of the module or the name of the bean, you're going to grab this here. So all lowercase contacts. And I lost a good like 2 hours troubleshooting this. So I don't know why they couldn't have made it this, and this is actually how it is for the like custom modules, but for built-in modules with the legacy code, it's like this. So that's how it, this is what you should be grabbing, right, for your core modules. Link type is always relationship info. Join link name is your relationship table. So that's pretty straightforward. The rest of the stuff here. Then here, the structure, this is the remaining part of your var defs. We are going to be copying what's here and defining it further below. So we're just basically telling the system, okay, go ahead and grab all of the relationship fields, but then we're going to drill down and define each one of those relationship fields below. So we're taking this, defining it here, putting the same name here, label this here, here, label this here, here, label. So this is going to make all of our database fields usable inside the subpanel. So now we just need to, the last part is just to define the subpanel metadata files. So that part here is done. So to give you a quick overview of what we're doing, we have two metadata files. So the first metadata file is of your host module here, and it's basically going to be defining what submodules you have in your host module. So we have a metadata file for this, like a metadata file that defines this. And what we want to do is we want to modify, we want to say that for this specific submodule, we want to use a custom metadata file. So not like the whatever is used now, but a custom one. And which is, it's actually another separate metadata file for your submodule. So it may be a bit confusing, but it's actually pretty straightforward. So let's take a look at it right now. And good thing we have this tutorial, right? So you don't have to spend your time doing all this research. So what we'll do is we'll go first to your host module, which has several subpanels, and we're going to try and find we're basically going to look in two places. First, we're going to see if there's already like a separate custom file that was defined. So we'll find it in custom extension modules, host module, extension layout devs, host module, not submodule. You may get mixed up here. Don't forget, host module. There you go. Like you'll get stuck. Please remember these differences here. So I know for a fact that I don't have it, but if you did have it, what you would do is you just would open up that file and you would change the value where it says subpanel name. You would put it to custom panel file. So the custom panel file is the one that you defined here. So I know for a fact that I do not have it. So basically, if you do have this, you can go ahead and skip to the next part of the tutorial, which is here. In my case, I do not have it. So if you do not have it, what we're going to do is the following. So we're going to go to the host module, and okay, so we're going to go to the modules, then the host module, which is in our case, what is it? It's contacts, I think, right? Yeah, contacts. Okay, so contacts, then we're going to go to the metadata subpanel devs. And this part here, which is inside the subpanel setup. So by the way, take a look at this. Layout devs, contacts, subpanel setup, right? We'll revisit this little bit in a little bit. Okay, so we have here the broad definition for the project's subpanel. This stuff here that I talked about. So we have one for contacts, for projects, for campaigns. So let's say contacts, projects, campaigns. So for this one, we're going to grab this definition here. We're going to copy it. And then what we're going to do is we're going to create a custom file in custom extension modules host. Oh yeah, we're going to create it here. It's the same, yeah, custom extension modules, exactly. I'm gonna go to the, that's how we modify. We copy paste and then we make our modifications inside the custom folder, and that makes our, first of all, it's going to make our changes go live, and it's also going to be upgrade safe. So we're going to go to the contacts, then what is it, extension, layout defs. By the way, if ever you don't find these folders, you just need to create them. And then we're going to create the file name, which is relationship name underscore host module. So the relationship name is this, underscore host module is this. And we're pasting that file, but with a very important difference. It's going to start with this part here, like so, and the host module. The host module is contacts. So we're going to put it here. Name of the array. So that's the name of the array is this project. Going to put it here. And this part we're going to remove. Boom. There you go. Okay. So like so. And then we're going to basically close our file. Close our definition of the array. So this is basically pretty much this. Okay. So we did all of that. And now we're going to change. So you see here it says for contacts. If we look at the original one, it was default. So the subpanel name is going to be changed from default to for contacts. That's the name of the custom panel file. Don't forget, custom panel file is there. So by actually specifying for contacts, what this means is basically we're telling Sugar, hey, for this subpanel here, project subpanel, I want you to go ahead and pull up the file called forcontacts.php. And this file is going to have the information we need that is basically that talks about, that defines this subpanel further, right? We're not actually going to put PHP, but Sugar is going to know that we need to look for a PHP file here. And now we're just going to create this file. So the way that we do it is we're going to find the original file, which is default.php, or whatever you had here before it was default. So you're going to find default.php inside this location here, and you're going to copy it to custom modules, submodule, metadata, subpanels. In our case, it's going to be like this. This is the file. And at the bottom, we're going to put the following. So these definitions are very straightforward. We're basically telling it to go ahead and grab all of the relationship fields that we made available in vardefs. So remember, we defined them in vardefs here. And this is exactly the same thing that you're putting in that subpanel metadata definition. So what I mean is right now we're dealing with this guy here. We're telling it, okay, in this subpanel, I want to have my custom relationship fields. That's what we're defining here, right? So once we copied over, I hope I'm not going too fast, but once we copied over this file to this file, we're going to rename it from default.php to your custom panel file.php. We're going to rename it to this file here, and then we're going to basically go ahead and grab the exact same values that we had in vardefs and copy them over. So we're grabbing this and we're putting it in our file here at the bottom. So we're going to put it here. So the project contacts fields. Then this is the alias, this is an alias, this is an alias. Aliases are where, if you remember, here, here, here. And they were drilled down further here, 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 right? And now if we go back to our subpanel definition, we see that they all match. Don't forget, when you're going over the tutorial, always to triple check that you don't leave any of the fields as they are here. Like everything in red should be changed, and double check if I forgot something to be in red. For example, this should be changed also. This should be basically like, this should match exactly like so. This matches this, this matches this. This doesn't have a name, so that's fine. And this doesn't have a name, so that's fine also. So now we will run repair and rebuild. So, okay, so you know how to run repair and rebuild from the admin interface. And if we look at our database table here, you see we have the dates set for this contact ID that's related to this project ID. And if we actually go to the interface, you can ignore this, just me troubleshooting inside the sugar bean class, just outputting stuff. We can see here that the date start here is here and the date end is here. So I hope you found this tutorial helpful. Maybe you got a bit of background about the underlying architecture of Sugar/suiteCRM. If you did, please leave a like if you don't mind and subscribe, because I'll be making more of these in the future. If you have any questions, please let me know. Have a good day.